challenges.
So that frustration, though, is it possible for it to be called frustration if it brings me joy? Is it possible? Because
Sure.
I even in the depths of like frustration, man, I feel good even getting tapped out.
Yeah, especially when you can reflect on it. And that's why I think you said, when you said you forget about the bad things, you forget about the bad things in a certain kind of discourse. If you regard that overall discourse as being a good thing, then you'll start to forget the bad thing.
Yes.
And vice versa.
But I never go home and say, like, oh man, I can't believe that I couldn't get out of there. I just couldn't do anything. At least I don't remember.
Yeah.
Man, I gotta have that feeling in there somewhere.
Yeah, it has to be. And really what they are just the challenges that are specific to certain stages. And these are real general things that probably apply to, to everybody in one way or another on the stages.
Yeah, and it's the same thing with leadership. Like most of the time, even though I've been in some situations where I was like, man, I didn't do a good job there. I could have done better. Normally I'm not frustrated, or I was working for somebody that wasn't letting me do what I wanted to do, and I had more maneuvering to do to get where I needed to be.
Yeah.
Didn't get frustrated. I enjoy that game. I enjoy that game.
Yeah. Micro frustrations.
Yeah.
They're like micro tears in your muscle. You feel them, but they're all for like benefit for overall muscle growth.
Stronger in the long run.
They're not injuries. Exactly.
Question, and I'll do my best to answer, because it's definitely time for some self-awareness here for the individual asking this question. It sounds like you are, a big abrasive person that is aggressive and intimidates people. And I know what it's like to be that person, because I could come across as intimidating. I know that. I can definitely come across as aggressive. I can be aggressive. I am aggressive in many ways. Abrasive, I don't know that necessarily categorizes me, because I'm very cautious about not being abrasive. Because if I'm being abrasive with people, am I building a relationship and making any progress? The answer is obviously no. So the thing is, when I hear this type of question, I think that there's some little bit of insecurity going on here, right? Some little bit of, hey, that's not an insult. Mm-hmm. That's what I sense. Because everyone's got insecurities. I do. Everybody does. But the fact that you asked this question, I'm hoping that means you want to make some kind of improvement, right? You want to get better. And, I'm a little worried that you might just be looking for like reinforcement, because people think Jocko's big and aggressive. So if I say I'm big and aggressive, Jocko's just going to say, hey, those people are just scared of you and they don't deserve your mercy. Or, you know what you do? You use your intimidation factor to overrun those people, right? That might be what you're looking for, but you're not going to get that here. And the reason you're not going to get that here is because that's not going to help you. It's not going to help you achieve your goals. And you talk about people being scared of you, but the fact likely is that you're the one that's scared. And you actually said it yourself, that you don't want to appear to be weak. Mm-hmm. You don't want to appear to be a bitch, right? Bitch. Yep. That feeling, that's fear. That's fear. It's fear of looking weak. It's fear of looking wrong. It's fear of failure, and it's fear of vulnerability. And those are real. Those are real. And if you're, everybody should be feeling those fears at some level, but you have to overcome those fears. If you don't, then how are you ever going to step up? If you're too afraid to be wrong, how are you ever going to answer a question? Mm-hmm. If you're too afraid to look weak, how are you ever going to expose any weaknesses? And if you don't expose any weaknesses, well, just build a bunker around yourself and sit in there by yourself. Yeah. So as a leader, we know that up and down the chain of command, you need to develop relationships, right? That's what you're supposed to do. That means you need to communicate with people. That means you need to talk, and you need to listen, and you need to develop trust. And one of the best ways to develop trust with other people is by exposing some vulnerability. by saying, hey, Echo, I'm not quite sure how to do this. Or, hey, Echo, hey, can you help me with this issue I have going on here? I don't know how to solve it. That's ways that you build trust and thereby build relationships. And it's hard to do that because you don't want to look stupid. You don't want to look weak. You don't want to admit you don't know something because you want to be Mr. Strong and know everything. And so you're probably putting up a front, an aggressive front, an abrasive front. It's a wall to keep people intimidated. And then in your mind, you think it's not my fault, it's their fault. Because they're scared of me. It's their fault because I'm so intimidating. So that is not good. And then you get your kind of closing statement. Should you just accept that I rub people the wrong way? You can. You can accept that you rub people the wrong way, but then you might as well accept right then and there that you're never going to be a true leader. That you're never going to build any relationships, that you're never going to inspire anybody, and you're never going to be the leader of a badass, unified, high-performing team. Probably not worth it. And the better thing to do is to humble yourself, is to open yourself up to the pain and the discomfort of displaying weakness and error and failure. And open yourself up to try and be nice to other people. Instead of being scared of what's going to happen if you expose yourself, go ahead and throw it out there. Yep. Act pleasant to them so they talk to you without fear. And in doing those things, you can overcome whatever these insecurities are. And I don't know what insecurities you have. It could be any number of things. Maybe you don't think you're as smart as they are. Maybe you don't think you're as well educated as they are. Maybe you don't think that you have the strategic vision that they have. Whatever those insecurities are, it's all good. We all got them. No big deal. But if you stop hiding them and you own them, you will become not only a better leader, but you'll become a better man. Well, and there's even more awful random people out there that you might need to look out for. I think this is obviously you got people that are appointed criminals that are coming after you. You got terrorists that might be coming after you, or just trying to do random acts of mass violence. So those are a particular type. I think that this is a question directed for more of something that could easily happen to people, random, right? Yeah. Random people that are being jerks or thugs or people that are drunk or high or whatever else. Okay, so obviously, what do we want to do? We want to be prepared. So to start with, you want to be in really good physical condition. So that means you want to work out. You want to be ready to handle yourself physically. You want to know how to fight. That means you need to train jiu-jitsu, boxing, Muay Thai, wrestling. If you're in a high crime area or you're in a high threat area and you think this stuff is really going to happen out there, then guess what? You need to get a firearm. You need to learn how to shoot a firearm. You need to train with the firearm. You need to understand the ramifications of utilizing a firearm, and then you need to carry it so you can protect yourself. And those same things go if you decide you're going to carry any kind of weapon, whether it's pepper spray or a mace or an asp or a knife, anything that you're going to carry, you better know what you're doing. You need to prepare with it. So that's what you need to do to be prepared. Okay, that's what. And I've said this before. I said it on the Sam Harris podcast. If you do these things, if you work on your physical condition, if you work on your fighting, if you work on your shooting, if you work on your weapon skills, and you never have to use them, great. I will still say it has not been wasted time. It has been time that has made you a better person. It's imposed discipline on you. It's gotten you better physical conditioning. It's just good for you. So regardless, you should be training in these type of situations. Now, once you get to this type of situation, first of all, how did you get there? Because we need to have situational awareness, right? How are you not paying attention to what's going on around you? You need to pay attention to what's going on around you. And then you watch for these scenarios that could unfold and you avoid them, period. So how are you getting stuck on a bus with a bunch of maniacs, right? There's something, when they got on, you got off. That's real simple, right? Or you go to get on and you see these knuckleheads, you walk right back off. I mean, that's pretty easy to handle. Oh, there's a bunch of knuckleheads walking down the street towards you? Cool, cross the street, walk down the other side. Situational awareness. Oh, you hear them coming up behind you? Cool, step off, cross the street, avoid. We want to have situational awareness. That should solve 99% of your problems.
Agree.
Is being aware of your surroundings, understanding your situation, planning. What about just simple planning? Like, where are you going? When are you going to come home? You know, if you took a subway into the city at night and you know you're going to be coming home late at night and you're alone, and you are suspect of what's happening, maybe you get an Uber instead of riding the subway. It's just planning that comes into play as well to avoid these situations. Now, if you do get caught in these situations, here's a couple recommendations. Okay, my number one is to kind of do your best to detach from the scenario, right? So you got, let's say you're on a bus and there's a bunch of people acting crazy and they jumped on right after you got on and you couldn't get off in time, so now you're on the bus with them. I want you to detach from them. So that means you're not looking at them, you're not staring at them, you're not being all intimidated. You want to just detach. Just do what you would normally do. You know, everyone carries a phone these days. Break out your phone, start looking at your phone, pull out your paper, start looking at your paper, study. If you don't have either one of those two, you know, look outside, look at the passing. Just don't enter their world. Don't become a part of their thing that they have going on. Because what they want you to do is they want you to make eye contact. Yeah, what they want you to do is glance over at them. What they want you to do is enter their world. Because a lot of times these knuckleheads, they're in their own world. And you actually have to penetrate their world if you want to get in there. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to remain. I'm not going to cower, though. There's a difference, okay? Because if you give the impression of you're just like cowering and scared, well, then that's entering their world.
Yep,
they're going to recognize that. But if you're just, hey, sitting here just doing what you're normally doing, it's not a big deal. You do this all the time. You don't care about them. Don't care about me. Leave me alone. That's where I'm going. Now, if for whatever reason I make some kind of eye contact, right? Now I made the eye contact. I've entered their world. I'm going to go ahead and give them just a little head nod. You know, just a little regular head nod like I would do with you if I saw you on the street. Hey, you know, just a little respectful little head nod. And then I'm going to go right back to what I was doing. I'm going to go right back out of their world. I acknowledge their world. I'm not going to give them I'm not going to look scared, but I'm not going to look aggressive. I'm just going to be respectful. Hey, little head nod, you know, hope you're having a good night.
It's good.
And then go back to your business. Again, I just want to detach from them. That's my attitude, is I want to detach from them. And this avoids them saying, you know, like if they're looking at you and you don't look back, or they're just like bearing down on you, hey, what do hey, why are you ignoring me or whatever? Are you too cool for me or something like that? So sometimes you get, you know, look, little head nod, it's all good. If they do start, now see, I'm escalating this. So they're escalating this. So now if they do start to escalate this thing in like, you know, what are you looking at, or one of those things? It's just, again, what you're trying to do is you're trying to de-escalate without appearing vulnerable, you know? So maybe it's just, you know, hey, no issue here. You know, just something simple like that. No, I'm good. Like, what are you doing? Just riding the bus home. You know what I mean? Just real matter of fact. Just didn't go try and get back. You know, so you might want to just even try and connect a little connection instead of I'm trying to go home, because that might piss some people off because they don't have a home, or their home is a bad place. So what might be better than saying that is, you know, I just got done with work. Now you're just a working man, right? Mm-hmm. Of course, you might be dealing with someone that doesn't have a job or lost their job. Right. So I'm saying you're not going to come up with a great. But my point here is just you're just going to try and make simple, non-confrontational statements that don't give them anything to grab onto, because that's what they want. No they waves. Want something. They just want something to grab onto. That's what they're looking for. So you don't want to let that happen. Now, things can still continue to escalate. You get someone that's determined to be a jerk, or determined to be hostile, or determined to be aggressive. Now, I'll tell you that if you train and you work out and you do jiu-jitsu and you have skills, people know it. People that are belligerents generally can tell. Mm-hmm. Even in a drunken state, when you square off with someone or you look at someone and they have an attitude of like, look, I do this all the time. I'm good. You want to fight? I'm here. Not saying that, but just a look. Right. And people can tell. Yeah. If they're real troublemakers, they can tell. Now, sometimes that's not a good thing, because that means they're going to do the challenge. And by the way, when you do train all the time, you do know how to fight. And then it is matter of fact. You're like, yeah, I'll fight you. Yeah, hold on.
That's the best feeling in the world.
It's a good feeling to know that you can handle yourself. Yep. Now, okay, so now this continues to escalate, and you just try and keep your distance from people. You don't want to let them get close. You don't know they got a knife. You don't know what kind of disease they got. You just want to keep away from them.
Yeah.
But eventually, you might not be able to back up anymore. You might not be able to keep any distance. Watch their hands. Keep as much distance as you can. Eventually, you got to put your hands up in kind of a non-confrontational way to protect your face, to protect the sucker punch that's coming. You put your hands up just in a non-confrontational way, up around your head, and continue to de-escalate. Hey, man, I'm not here. Don't have any problems. Mm-hmm. I'm not looking for an issue. I don't know what your issue is, but I don't have any issue with you. I'm just trying to head home from work. One of those things. And finally, if you get to a point where you have no choice, well, then you utilize the skills that you have. You hit hard, hit fast. You don't stop hiding until the threat is neutralized, and then you get away. There's another kind of instinct that you need to be on the lookout for, and this one is a liar. This one is a saboteur. Well, this one is a backbiter. And like the devil himself, he's a shapeshifter. He's going to disguise himself and make you think he's got your best interest in mind. But he doesn't. This is the instinct that says, you've had enough. This is the instinct that says, you've given it your best shot. You can stand down. You can back off. You can take a knee. This is the instinct that says, you can rest now. Do not listen to that instinct. Do not listen. That instinct is a liar and wants to bring you down. That's the instinct that's a defense mechanism. It wants to give you an out, a place to run to, a little place of sympathy, an amnesty, a little place of amnesty where everything is forgiven, where all these failures can gather together in comfort and drown their sorrows in lies and in deception. And they tell each other, and they'll tell you, you did the best you could. No, they'll say the deck was stacked against you. And they'll say it's not your fault. And they'll tell you it's okay to stop. It's okay to settle. It's okay to give up. And that is the instinct you need to fight. You need to push back, to smash into the ground. Do not take the easy way out. Do not give up based on instinct. If you are forced to stand down, to retreat, so that you can rebuild and reattack, so be it. But make that decision based on logic, not on the instinct of surrender and defeat. And you need to train that instinct. Your instinct. Train it to say, get up, go, fight on. And if that is what you become, if that becomes your fundamental reaction to adversity, if that becomes your gut instinct, then you will overcome just about anything that stands in your path. Yeah. So back to the ego point, when you start feeling like you're doing some of those negative things, that's when you gotta put your ego in check. That's what you gotta support your coworker instead of sabotaging. That's when you gotta pick the best plan out there instead of picking your own. That's when you say, you know what, I'm happy with what I have, instead of chasing things that I don't even need. You know what I'm talking about? When people, like, if you ever, there's been something that you wanted, even though you actually didn't even really want it, but you just want it just because it's pure ego. When I talk about subordinates, instead of cutting down your subordinates, you start lifting them up. You start making them shine. You start giving them the credit, making them shine even brighter than yourself. That's the beautiful thing, when you can put your ego in check and you can make that happen. Making your own boss look good, having an open mind to new ideas. Those are the things. That's how you put your ego in check. Those are the things that those are the hallmarks of having your ego in check. Now, sometimes people don't know when they need to put their ego in check. And I think there's one really easy indicator to know when you need to just at least like do an assessment of your ego, and that is when you come into conflict with another person. Because a huge percentage of conflicts that you have with other people are ego. Yeah. Are their ego. And so when you feel that conflict, whether it's about positioning, whether it's about an idea, whether it's about a plan, whether it's about, well, no matter what it's about. But if I'm in conflict with you on something, immediately I'm going to say, okay, wait a second. Is this your ego talking? Yeah. Or are you, is this business or is this ego? Yeah. And if you do that, you will find yourself, any form of frustration or anger that you have, just check your ego. And there's a good chance that you're going to be able to take that thing, get a hold of it, and aggressively put it in check. It's hard. Your ego is a tough bastard. Yep. Your ego, man, that thing wants the spotlight. It wants to shine. It wants the glory. And it's driven. You know, that's a lot of you high achievers out there. That's what's driving you. And that's not a bad thing. So when it comes time to harness that bad boy, it can be a challenge. But it's very rewarding when you make it happen. It's rewarding in a long-term gratification. It's not immediate gratification. Yeah. Generally, you're giving your subordinates all the credit for some project that they did. And you know that you could actually know that you did the bulk of the work, but you give it away. That's not gratifying immediately. The immediately is like, yeah, that's right. Put the accolades on my head, boss. That's immediate gratification that you're looking for. No, you say, hey, boss, you know what? Don't put the accolades on my head. Look at my team. Let's crown them because they really did a great job, and I'm just here to help them. There's no gratification in that. But when you get feedback a week later, a month later, 6 months later, people want to come and work for your team. Now your team gets picked for another project. That's the long-term gratification that you get when you keep your ego in check. So this is an example. I don't see this all the time, but I do see it sometimes. And what we have here is, clearly, guy steps up and says, you know what, I'm going to take ownership. I'm going to take extreme ownership, which is what I'm always encouraging people to do. Leif and I wrote the book. We called the book Extreme Ownership because that is the fundamental principle that we see as the common trait that makes people successful when they're taking ownership instead of blaming other people. So that's what this guy did with the roofing company. Hey, I'm going to take ownership of all the mistakes. Now, the problem there is with the concept of extreme ownership, it means taking ownership of the mistakes, taking ownership of the problems, but it doesn't stop there. That is simply where you start, because the real true ownership that you need to take is you need to take extreme ownership of the solutions, of implementing the solutions, of creating and implementing the solutions. That's what you need to take ownership of. So in a situation like this, like for instance, I took ownership of everything, so my team became entitled. Now, first of all, in that statement in its own right, if I say, hey, we failed because my team became entitled, what did I just do?
Blame them.
I blame them for becoming entitled.
Dang.
Why did they become entitled? I allowed them to. What am I going to do to solve that? I either have to change the way I'm treating them. Maybe there's a couple cancers in there that have that attitude, and I need to fire those people or replace them or get them retrained or put some ownership on them so that they realize, I'm going to lose my job if we're going to fail this mission, or the company's going out of business if I don't do this right. So that's the mistake there. So you've identified the problem, you've taken ownership of it. Hey, we got to make sure we get our jobs done on time. Okay, boss, well, you didn't order the gear in time and you didn't do this and now we're behind, so it's not our fault. And by the way, pay me. If that's the attitude your employees have, you got a problem as a leader. So what is the problem? How do you fix that problem? The thing is about ownership is taking ownership of the problem doesn't fix the problem. Right? It doesn't fix the problem. You still have to come up with the solution. So that's what it is. When we talk about extreme ownership, we're definitely not just talking about owning the problems, but like I said, owning the solutions and owning the implementation and actually carry to its furthest stretch, to its furthest outcome. That's where you have to take extreme ownership of, and this is the most important part. And obviously I need to make this clear enough because this should be something that everyone fundamentally understands when they talk about extreme ownership. The most important part for you to own as a leader is the outcome, is the end state. If you are not meeting your end state, that's what you have to take ownership of. That's what you have to make happen. So that's it. You know, when your company's not doing the right thing, you got to take ownership of the mistakes that happen. You got employees that are acting wrong. Yeah, hey, it's my fault that they're acting wrong. You got deadlines that you're missing. Yes, it's my fault that we missed the deadlines. Now you got to go back and ask yourself the question, how do I make the deadlines? How do I fix those employees? You got to solve those problems that are out there. Otherwise, extreme ownership doesn't do anything for you. And we've talked about this before as well. And that is that taking ownership of things is not a shelter.
Right.
It doesn't provide shelter.
Yeah.
It doesn't. And some people think it does. They go, hey, you know what? Hey, we failed on our mission. It's my fault. Okay, so, let's move on. No. Actually, no, we don't move on. You failed in your mission. How are you going to fix it?
Yeah.
Extreme ownership does not give you any mercy whatsoever. That's what's hard about it. And by the way, the thing that extreme ownership that makes it hard is because the previous question, it attacks your ego. Because when you say, hey guys, this is my fault, you're not just saying, hey guys, this is my fault, let's move on. You're saying this is truly my fault. Yeah. We failed because of me. And these are the things we're going to do to fix it, and I'm going to own it until we get it done. Oh, those people. Yeah. So, first of all, it's important to recognize that those people exist everywhere, and everybody's got to deal with me. If you run into one of these people, don't get all surprised as if they're a lone ranger out there being negative. No, there's negative rangers all over the place. So, you got to know how to deal with them. And it's... So when you're dealing with someone like that, first of all, confronting them, of course, as you can probably predict, is not usually the best option because all you're doing is you're attacking their heavily defended position, which is not good. So one of the techniques that I use when dealing with these kind of people is I absorb their critiques. I absorb their toxicity. I absorb their negativity. Now, obviously, this takes a little bit of strength, right? You can't be taking stuff personally. You have to, in order to learn how to absorb things, you got to say, okay, I'm just doing this for the team, right? Mm-hmm. But it looks like, for instance, when they say, oh, this is horrible, I don't say, no, it's not horrible. I don't just go right back at them. I say, yeah, you know what? We definitely got some room for improvement, right? So I kind of just deflected it. I kind of just absorb it, right? Absorb it a little bit. Because what they want to do is they're lashing out, right? They're throwing the negativity. They like those explosions. They like to see it hit something and blow up. That's what they're doing. That's how they roll. So you're going to absorb. You're going to catch it and pull it in, right? So when they're like, oh, we can never do this, I don't say, we can absolutely do this. No, because you're going to create the explosion that they're looking for. Instead, I'm saying, you know what? We might not be able to do it, but I'm going to give it a good solid try. I'm going to try and make it happen, right? So we're just deflected it a little bit, and they're going to throw you some other negative thing. And, you know, if they say, oh, this is stupid, I don't say, no, this is the most brilliant thing I've ever seen. I don't do that. Don't go head to head. I'm going to say, you know what? There's definitely some room for improvement the next time around. You're right, 100%. Ooh, yeah, you just got deflected. And those reactions, they disarm these ultra negative people. And it kind of takes their fight from them. And it also makes them look like emotional extremists. So with the group, right, when somebody calls that out in the group, and they're coming across all extreme, and you just absorb it and negate it a little bit, it negates their view, or I shouldn't say negate, because negate means like totally cross out. When you just absorb it and deflect it a little bit, the rest of the team goes, oh, yeah, you know, oh, Echo, he's just super emotional. He's a negative. They see him for what he is, which is helpful for you, right? And then once I'm done absorbing their attacks and taking some of those shots, no big deal, then I'm going to start to override them somewhat with some positivity, which is going to be directed at them, right? So they were all negative, but I'm going to say, hey, what you did there really worked well. Or, you know, hey, good job on that. I don't know. I never could have figured that out like you did, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm going to start getting in their head a little bit and start filling their head with some positive stuff. That's right. That's what I'm going to do. Man, you figured that out better than anybody. Nicely done. And I'm bringing them from the dark side over to the light. That's what I'm doing. I'm bringing them over. Yep. And actually, I used to have the funniest, one of my favorite guys in the SEAL teams. He was my first deployment to Iraq. He was the senior enlisted guy in our task units, and actually we're just bros. But when one of us would start getting a little off the reservation on something, like getting all addicted to some idea or something, the other one we would be looking at, like I'd be telling him like, we need to do this and this is bullshit, we need to do, and he'd look at me like, he'd be like, Jocko, come back, come back to the light, come on, we're over here, it's okay. We're all going to be okay. So when I would start getting negative, he would start pulling me back to the light, right? And same thing with me, with him. He would get all, you know, Matter of fact, he's the guy. Remember when we talked about, well,
simplify, repeat. That guy?
No, simplify, amplify, and repeat. That's him. Yeah. That's him. He would also have to bring me back from the dark side, and I have to do it to him too if he started getting a little too negative. Good times, but. The last thing I want to do with someone that's being super negative is I want to give them some ownership. I want to give them some ownership, some ability to make changes, some ability to have some kind of a positive impact on the mission. So I'm going to pick something that I think they can step up and handle, right? Something that is within their grasp and realm and ability, and I'm going to give it to them. And then I'm going to kind of overload them with help and with assistance and with guidance to make sure that they win and that's going to start spinning them in a more positive direction.